Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And one of the, if not the most anticipated STAMPtember collaboration releases, which, as the video title gives away, it is the Tim Holtz collab. In years past, usually Simon Says Stamp has enough stock to last a couple days, but you know how it is with Tim Holtz and his fan base and all the wonderful people. Everyone's been waiting for this one. So, like all the others, let's step back a bit. During the month of September, Simon Says Stamp has STAMPtember, month-long stamping party where they've partnered with a ton of crafty brands to release limited edition exclusive sets that are one and done. When they sell out, they are not restocked. This one being no exception. All of these brands have wonderful product lines. Tim Holtz, of course, has multiple product lines. He's got the stamps and the dies and accessories, like all amazing things. It's Tim Holtz. We love all the products. So I will have links to this set. As of right now, I'm not sure what the bundle is. Like there's the stamp set option, of course, and then there's the bundle option. As of filming this intro, I'm not sure. I was sent the set, and then I've got this really cute little Postage stamps wafer die set that I'm not 100% certain if it is going to also be limited edition or part of the line. I don't know, but the stamp set is limited edition. So I'll have links to that. I'll have links to the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous selection. There are so many to choose from, hundreds and hundreds of wonderful stamp sets, and definitely worth checking out. So I made a couple cards. I went a little grungy. There's something about when I'm working specifically with Tim Holtz products, it's like just in the back of my mind. I'm like, it needs a little grunge. And I had fun with it. So we did some alcohol marker coloring and some ink smushing, a little bit of stenciling, all the fun things. And as always, I'll have links to everything I used in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keeps the channel going. And let's get right into making these cards. So this is the Tim Holtz STAMPtember 2024 stamp set. For those that may not be aware, Tim Holtz stamps are red rubber on cling foam, and they come on these plastic carrier sheets that do have binder holes in them. I just keep them in the packaging they come in, and depending on the set, some come weeded, which means it's just the stamps. And then other ones like this, they come with the stamps like in the, whatever you want to call it, like the sheet of rubber. And personally, with sets like this that have lots of small stamps, I keep like it just like I'm showing, like I keep the whole thing, because that way I can see at a glance if I'm missing a stamp, like, you know, if I forgot to put it away. So I do that with all his sets that have like, yeah, lots of little images, and they're only connected by like the teensiest little piece of the rubber. You just peel them out and either stick them on a block like this, or you can use a stamp positioner. Because they're red rubber, they do stamp amazingly. So what I had done was I took just a whole bunch of scraps of Simon Says Stamps, smooth white, 120-pound cardstock, and I was just grabbing little images from this set at random, because there's a lot to choose from. Honestly, I was kind of overwhelmed looking at it, because I was like, there's so many. I can do so many things. So I just stamped. And I stamped everything with Simon's Intense Black ink, which is a alcohol marker friendly ink. And then I colored everything in with my Olo markers. And I sped up this coloring significantly. It didn't take that long per se, but I had a lot of images stamped. I had no idea when I started what I was going to do. I was like, you know what? I'll just get them stamped. I'll just color a bunch, and then we'll see what happens. So yeah, use my Olo markers, which I will have a link at the end of the video in the end screen to my Olo markers playlist, which I've added to significantly this month because I've been using them quite a bit. But I'll have a link to that Any alcohol marker will work, obviously. And then I always got a note. These are half markers and they come with connectors and you can connect them. You do not in any way need to use them like this. I am just being ornery and weird and using them as little stublets. It's what's working for me for now. But yeah, they come with connectors. You can connect them. You don't need to color with them like this. Because I know people with like hand issues, they see this and they think I'm completely nuts. But funny enough, I have like hand issues and it doesn't bother me. But down the road, I'm holding out. I'm waiting for either fine tips or I might just get the refills and connect them. So they'll be like a normal size marker, you know, for normal people. But this works. This works. So yeah, worked my way around. It's a little bit disjointed watching this footage, especially with it sped up because everything's on an individual, you know, little postage stamp die cut. But this just worked. I just kind of zoned out and did my thing, you know, and these images were cute and the coloring is all pretty basic. I didn't do anything, you know, groundbreaking or anything like that. So then once I had all of the images completely colored in, I had to finish my little snowman, of course. Got to give them their little carrot noses. And then I used, of course, cool grays because it's very rare for me. I did it in a recent video. But when I see top hats in my mind, I immediately think black. So one thing I did, though, was I took a very, very pale blue marker and outlined all these images. I don't know if anyone, because there's some of you that have been following me since like way back in the day. Remember how we always used to do this with our Copic markers? Before we had coordinating wafer dyes and could like die cut images, you would outline them with a really pale blue, usually the BG10, and then you would blend it out with a BG quadruple 0. So that's what I was thinking of when I did that. Anyway, storage sleeves. There's a point to this. I have an inky storage sleeve and I've shown this in many videos. I don't know where it grew legs and walked off. It's around here somewhere. I'll find it in some random really weird spot. But I have packs of these on hand because I use them to store everything. I store stamp sets and specialty cardstocks and all kinds of things in these storage sleeves. Acetate works well too, but the storage sleeves are very flexible. And this is great if you like the concept of ink smushing, but you want more control. So I also pulled out one of my grip mats. I showed this I'm planning to show this in a recent video. It depends on what time videos are going up. The other one should go up before this. So I showed it in a recent video sticking my grip mats in Simon's mesh storage bags. I can't take credit for that idea. The idea was forwarded onto me and I don't know who first came up with this. Game changer. Because the one thing I hate with my grip mats, I really don't like messing around with the acetate that I keep to protect the cover. So I stick them now in the mesh storage bags. Game changer. So much easier. It'll stick to the mesh bag on the inside, but not very much. So that's how I've been storing them. Because I have multiple grip mats because I do this as a job. So I have a bunch from different brands. They're all great. Choose whichever one appeals to you the most. They're all fabulous. Anyway, with the storage sleeve. I had smushed Tumbled glass distress ink onto it, sprayed it with water, and then as you can see, I'm just pressing it onto these pieces. And since these images were colored with alcohol markers, the images aren't going to run, with any water or ink that I'm pressing on top of it. Now, this is not, water resistant cardstock. It's not watercolor paper. It's not heavy stock, but with Simon's, because it's 120 pound weight, it's a good weight, it can handle a bit. I wouldn't watercolor on this cardstock in any way, shape, or form, but ink smushing like this works fine. Totally fine. So using a sleeve like this, like I said, gives you control. So you can kind of see more where you're placing it. I'm not super concerned about it, but I didn't want to completely cover the images, with just big old blotches of ink. So this gives me, a little more leeway. I can kind of keep it more to the perimeters. This brown was vintage photo, by the way. And yeah, if it is more appealing, because I know some of y'all are control freaks. I have my own control freak tendencies. It just depends. It has odd ways of showing itself sometimes. With ink smushing, not so much. But there's always a time and a place. And with this, I definitely wanted to be able to see where I was placing all my little smushy blobs. So after I did the ink smushing, I took that vintage photo distress ink and just one of the tiny blending tools with the tiny blending foam And I'm just blending that vintage photo on the edges of all these pieces. Like I said, when I'm working with Tim Holtz brand products, the brown and the grunge, it's lurking. It's just lurking. Sometimes, I go with it, and other times it's like, no, I'm doing my own thing. You just do whatever works for you. But these were fun, and and I've shown in other videos, of course, like the postage stamp stuff. I enjoy making it messy. That alone, like adding the ink smushing, the blending, and then I'm stamping the cancellation stamp that comes in the set. Just stamping it right on there with the intense black ink, getting it all over my work surface. I don't care. I am having fun with this. It's freeing in a way, because I'm just not having to worry either about getting like fingerprints on things or that sort of a thing, because that generally will happen too, especially if I'm trying to keep, my things a little more clean and simple. I say that sarcastically because I don't do much clean and simple. You guys that have watched my content know I struggle with clean and simple. More so because I am a hot mess and I make a mess. So anyway, after I stamped the cancellation stamp, I had kind of made a layout. This is roughly, what I wanted to do. And then I take, when it's things like this, or if it's like a floral, I've made an arrangement or whatever, but I have other things I need to do first, I take a photo of it and then set it aside. And it's a good thing I did, because by the time I'm done with these backgrounds, I had completely forgotten what I had laid out. So these backgrounds are just A2 sized panels of Simon's sea glass cardstock. And this stencil is the Tim Holtz, it's from the mini stencil set. I'll have a link. It's the stencil set number 44, because again, he's got a lot of stencils. And same thing, I hoard these too because they're all awesome. So I blended just the tumbled glass with a blending brush over the stencil on these backgrounds, and then I ink smushed on these backgrounds as well, which I like it. I'm so used to doing ink smushing with just watercolor paper or heavy stock, but doing it on, just colored cardstock, things like this, I was like, I need to revisit this more often. I'm kind of liking it. The only thing, again, to remember is these cardstocks aren't meant to handle a lot of water, but they can handle a decent amount, like the ink smushing anyway. So I did the tumbled glass. I let everything dry, aka I dried it with my heat tool to speed things up. And then I smushed the vintage photo distress ink using the sleeve, smushing the ink, spraying with water, smushing it on the background. And yeah, created some grungy, messy backgrounds. And this was fun. I need to do this more often because I was having a blast. I made such a mess. Oh, if you guys could see my desk, it's so bad. It was so bad. But again, super fun. Love it. So I set those backgrounds aside to fully dry. And I die cut just some scraps of some green leaf cardstock with the smaller of the little postage stamp wafer dies. And then I stamped the Holiday Wishes sentiment from that set. The set has like a ton of sentiments as well. And then inked the edges with the vintage photo distress ink. And then, like I said, good thing I had taken a photo of, the layout of these, because by this point I had completely forgotten what I had done. So then I set that off to the side and I was kind of referring to it. So I was like, okay, this, I had this one here, And then I put these on an angle, which I'm pointing out because, again, it's what I tend to do is, things need to be straight. They need to be lined up, And I was like, no, they don't. Also, because by this point I kind of figured out obviously what I was going to do. And I was like, I kind of wanted it to look like a whole bunch of stamps had just kind of fallen on these messy little card fronts. So I placed them on angles, and some I glued down with just craft tacky glue, and some I popped up with some thin foam squares to just create a bit of dimension. I also pulled out some baker's twine. So wrapped that around the card front, used my reverse tweezers to hold the knot, made my little bow. Once I'm happy with it, I can pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight, fiddle with it a bit more till I'm happy with it, trim off the excess, repeated that on the second card front, and then finish adhering all of these little postage stamps. And I was also roughing up the edges a little bit, kind of bending up the corners, just really embracing the, unevenness and the grunge. It was fun. So use the mixture of the foam squares and the glue. So it creates just that little extra bit of depth and dimension. Plus also the foam squares help, adhering over things like the baker's twine and whatnot. So once I got the final little postage stamps in place, I can then adhere the sentiments. And again, I'm just going to adhere them with the foam squares. And then I had a couple of the little postage stamps left over that I had colored. And I'm going to use those on the insides of my cards. So my cards are top folding A2 white note cards. And I pulled, there's a little snowflake image in the set. So I pulled that out. And I'm going to stamp that along the bottom corner of these cards with the tumbled glass ink. And inking it up and stamping it, and then stamping it again without inking it. So I get the second generation of that ink. It's just 2 shades with 1 ink pad. So stamp those along the corner here of the insides of my cards. And then I'm going to stamp that cancellation stamp because I love it. Love it. So stamp that, adhere my little postage stamps that I'd made, get those adhered into place. And then I'm going to stamp another sentiment from the set with that intense black ink. And then that'll finish off the insides of these cards. So get those stamped. And then I can adhere the card fronts to the card base, and these will completely cover the card base. Once the card fronts are adhered, I absolutely had to add glossy accents to, that is Rudolph with his big old red nose. That is just a must have. He has to have a shiny red nose. So I'm going to add glossy accents to their noses, which it'll go on a little cloudy, but it'll dry like clear and raised. So one, removed a tiny clog from it. And then with that first one, you can't like see it on camera, but there was a couple little air bubbles. I just take a pin while it's still wet. You just take a little pin and you can just pop the little air bubbles and then you just let it dry. So after I'd applied that, I took my white gel pen and just added a whole bunch of little highlights and dots like I tend to do, just wherever I felt they were necessary, just being careful not to like get my hand on top of the glossy accents because that takes a while to dry. That will depend on your climate with things like glossy accents, how thick you apply it and your climate. Mine actually dries quite quickly, like 20 minutes max. But if I apply it really thick, it might take longer. My other word of advice would be with glossy accents is when you're using it, apply the same amount to like a scrap of cardstock and then use that as your guide. Because my worst thing is I like to poke at it. Like, is it dry yet? And then I wreck it. So do as I say, not as I do. And that finished off these cards. These were fun. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all of the things in the description box below the video. You can just expand that and check it out if you are interested. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton and I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.